Hello, and thank you for coming to the Political Napalm here on YouTube. Let's go ahead and talk about today's topic, and that is the right wouldn't know the truth if it walked up and kicked them in the taint. And we've got a couple reasons to discuss that, so let's go ahead and start with an easy one. So back a couple days ago on Twitter, you had people in the Trump camp, especially his own son, as you can see here, Eric Trump, posting a picture saying that these were people all waiting to see Trump at either court or at the Trump Tower in relation to his being there on trial for the hush money case with Stormy Daniels. Now, the more appropriate thing is to call it an election interference case, because that is exactly what it was. It was catching and killing, not catching and releasing, but catching and killing negative stories about Trump in the lead up to the 2016 presidential run. Meanwhile, you had people propagating the but her emails stories, when on the flip side of it, you had people trying to tamp down the stories about Donald Trump and the affair that he had with Stormy Daniels and the sordid details of it. Kind of resembles the whole Hunter Biden stuff, except for the fact that with Hunter Biden and his laptop, that was Hunter Biden who was the one that was getting dragged for that, not the actual candidate themselves. But we're going to go ahead and take a look at this picture over here. And Eric Trump is sitting there saying, oh, these are people lined up to see my dad and all this other stuff. Except it wasn't. And the community notes on Twitter, or now X, as Musk likes to call it, it's still going to be Twitter to me and everybody else, took down the community note, but it was up for quite some time, that these people were actually there to see Biden. This is an older picture of people waiting to see Biden when he came into town. Now, here is the problem with posting such a completely wrong picture and taking credit for it. When you do that, not only is it easy to bust you for the stupidity and the lie, but when you see this amount of people and they are there for the opponent of Trump, and you look at it and you're like, wow, this is so good. This is such a great amount of people. This is such enthusiasm. We're going to use this and say it's for Trump, but it's really for the opposition. You're basically stating the opposition has already won. Nobody wants to take a picture of a low amount of people or low energy and say, well, this is from my dad. You're not going to run the footage of Trump getting booed to the point where he was nearly crying at the World Series. You're not going to show a negative, but the problem is the positive that they're showing is a positive for the other side. So if you think this is so good for Donald Trump and it's actually for Biden, you've just told so deeply on yourself and on your campaign. But, that's what happens with Trump. People in his orbit, people who belong to the MAGA sphere, are so deep down in the misinformation well, they haven't seen the light of day for almost a decade now. When you run attack ads on Biden in 2020 saying he's diminished, he's alone, he's in his basement, and you crop out the fact that he's sitting there in the middle of a Super Bowl party and has people surrounding him, when you sit there and say he's sleepy, he's not fit to serve, and they show him with his eyes closed and his hands near his head, but when you see the bigger picture, not the crop job, you'll see that he was praying in church and had people around him and like Secret Service around him and everything. When you constantly lie to make your point, you're admitting the other side has already won. If you can't develop an attack strategy that is actually based on truth, then you've already lost. When you have to lie about crowd sizes, when you have to crop out actual legitimate photographs and twist them to be against the person rather than show the original when it would be for the person, when you take their crowds and claim it as your own, you've already lost the game. To sit there and say that in Wildwood, New Jersey, he had 10,000 people, he had 100,000 people, when the venue only had about 3,000 people, and you have people conflating it all the way up to 100,000, that's ridiculous. And why? It's so easy to prove that lie. And when other people start running it, and other people start reposting it, and other people start propagating that, they then get crapped on too, and they get insulted for believing it, and they get the truth dumped on them, and now they look like idiots. You've dragged other people into repeating your stupidity, and then they come across as being stupid. So anybody who sits there and says Biden is not campaigning and he can't hold a rally and he's in his basement and he's sleepy, meanwhile look at what Donald Trump can do on the New Jersey coast, there's 100,000 people there, and then you're like, the venue can only hold 3,000 tops, and it's not even full. Then you just look like a complete moron, and you're being a moron in service of other morons. So it propagates from top to bottom. So yeah, this is an easy one here. This crowd was not for Donald Trump. You could see by the lack of red. Here, you don't see a lot of MAGA paraphernalia. It is already known and proven that this picture was for Biden. So that's an easy one. Now, we go on to the fact that Walt Nauta has been busted as being on footage of moving around the boxes for the documents case in Mar-A-Lago. I'm kind of concerned as to whatever room this guy is in, that there is a double-pronged extension cord just like hanging from the ceiling like this. It appears to maybe be like a back kitchen area. Those might be freezers or refrigerators over there. And yeah, he's on footage moving the boxes around because they have continued to find more documents at Mar-A-Lago that were in Trump's bedroom. I mean, this is incredible that the documents case is still going, and it's kind of funny that Trump attacks Judge Merchan for being from Colombia and starts almost kind of doing a derogatory, discriminatory attack on him for being out of the country when Judge Eileen Cannon is from the same country, and Trump never says anything about Eileen Cannon. So that really goes to show you where Trump's mind is. But, you know, this isn't really a truth or not true thing. That there's nobody attempting to deny what's going on over here. But, yeah, there's multiple pieces of footage showing Nauta as being involved in running the boxes around from one end of Mar-a-Lago to the other. And that's not a good look when Trump is keeping this guy so close. Trump knows what Nauta has in his head and what he can say. And he's keeping such a tight leash on him because he knows if the feds get to him and crack him, it's pretty much all over no matter what Eileen Cannon is going to say or do. On to the FBI authorization of the search warrant, the search and seizure that was executed on Mar-a-Lago. He was not raided. We're not going to use that term over here. He was searched. Now, people like to try to draw the comparison. They always wanted to draw it to Biden. They never want to draw it to Pence because they still kind of think Pence is on the same side of the fence, no pun intended. But they want to compare the documents issue with Biden to Trump, never with Pence. And they want to say, well, you know, he had all these things and they were in Chinatown, they were here, they were there. First of all, that's Trump speaking. That's not reality speaking. But there's been a big thing for about a day now that the FBI were authorized to protect their lives with force should an issue arise when they were executing the search warrant on Mar-A-Lago. It has been spun out by the rightoids on social media and right-wing press and everything that a hit, nearly a hit, was placed on Donald Trump when he was being searched and seized at Mar-a-Lago in the documents case. They're trying to spin it that the FBI ran in there like the LA SWAT movie and had, if you remember that tank that they had in that movie that ended in the flat panel, I think it said "Have a nice day" and it had like LA SWAT on it. That's not what happened in Mar-a-Lago. They didn't bust in there with like the Blues Brothers hut and dropping down from the ceiling and rappelling down and everything like that. That's not what they did. They weren't even wearing police and FBI and law enforcement uniforms at the time of the Mar-a-Lago search and seizure. They were civilian dressed. They went in there at a planned time. The Secret Service that were stationed there knew about it, and the Trumps were in New York. Donald Trump has stated on Truth Social, "I barely escape with my life." That is completely, wholly, and utterly not true, because he was not even in Florida at the time. He was up in New York, and it goes to show you how much the right-wing sphere and all this get their narratives twisted, and they let their narratives from different points in time contradict themselves. Trump has stated he was up in New York and he was watching it on CCTV and he was watching it happen. And of course, it's also when things came out like, oh, they raided, and I'm going to say raided in this case because it's how he was saying it. Oh, they raided like Melania's drawers and everything, and it's disgusting. And they took pictures, and we watched them ransack the place. You can't have it both ways. You can't sit there and say you basically jumped out the back window of Mar-a-Lago and like ran across the golf course because these people were there to kill you. When it was a planned event, it was a known event. You were not even in the state, and you were actually watching it happen on closed circuit TV. Which is it? You can't have it both ways. It's the same thing that you can't have it both ways that January 6 people were feds and Antifa, but then tried to hope that Donald Trump would pardon them. Get your narratives straight. And neither one of them are going to line up with reality. That's the problem. The real true narrative is reality, not competing narratives from different points in time that contradict themselves. So yeah, absolutely everything that happened with the search and seizure at Mar-a-Lago is the same thing that happened to Biden. It is the same thing that happened with Pence. They followed a standard protocol that says, in the event of threat, you are allowed to defend yourself. There is nobody thinking Pence was going to get shot, people at Joe Biden's location was going to get shot, that somebody was there to put a hit on Trump. If that was true, then why didn't they just do it when Trump was actually around? And by the way, that also screws with the presidential immunity statements Trump has made. When they talk about, well, I can just have my political rival assassinated, where's the immunity there? And his people try to say, well, it's contextual, maybe, kind of depends. Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't sit there and think that Biden tried to place a hit on you. We should arrest him and throw him in jail and everything, but then also at the same time argue that you have the immunity to do that. It's just that Biden doesn't have the immunity to do that. It's utterly ridiculous. And again, it shows how competing narratives in the right-wing sphere just always conflict with themselves. Because when your narrative is the truth, there isn't conflict like this. So yeah, the FBI search on Mar-a-Lago was bog standard. It included completely normal language in it that has nothing wrong. Now, we have the right burying the truth. On Truth Social, the Donald Trump account posted a video that featured a newspaper that said, through strength, and we're going to significantly increase blah, 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 the creation of a unified Reich. And there it is blown up, the creation of a unified Reich. They have since taken the picture down, the video down, but on Truth Social, this video ran with newspaper footage that mentioned a new and unified Reich. You know, the Nazi stylings that haunt Trump and his campaign never cease. They don't stop, and it continues. And they wear it on their sleeves. I mean, you go back a couple of years ago, the CPAC stage was it was designed with the Odal rune from German culture, which was another symbol that the Nazis adopted. I mean, imagine making your stage in the exact same layout as a Nazi symbol, and then you have a video that says you're going to create a unified Reich. Some people try to defend it and say it means realm. Like, go look it up, stupid. It means realm. Come on. Connotation and denotation. Book language and everyday spoken language. We all know what Reich is tied to when you hear it in popular culture. You know what you conjure in your brain. And here's the thing. Even if somebody did intend to mean it as realm, we all know Trump has a public relations image issue. We know that the Nazism dogs him from way back when to today. If anybody is smart on the Trump campaign and says, yeah, I get that the letter of the law here with this word is that Reich means realm. But people are not, that is not how people are going to get the connotation of this. We should not use that language when we are trying to distance Trump from that kind of stuff. That didn't happen because they meant exactly what they meant. They said exactly what they meant, and it's right there in the video footage. It's now been deleted from Truth Social, but, you know, the internet is forever. We've seen the video. We've seen the newspaper clipping in it. Not a good look. Here, in April, when the stock was plummeting like crazy for Truth Social, Trump stated that only himself and Dan Scavino have access to that account on Truth Social, but Caroline Leavitt has been saying that an unnamed staffer was the one who posted the Reich video. Again, twisted narratives. You can't have it both ways. You cannot state that only two people, Trump and Dan Scavino, can log in using that account and post from it, and then have somebody say his campaign floozy, that Caroline Leavitt is, that an unnamed staffer was the one who did it. Did what? Post the video or create the video? Because somebody had to create it for this spokesperson, quote unquote, to actually sit there and post it. And it took them about a day to take it down. There was no rush. So let me tell you, this is not believable whatsoever. Trump or Scavino is the one who posted that video, dog whistling in a way that we've known Trump to always do. Back to the documents case over here. It has also come out, and is a matter of a court filing, that Trump's Save America PAC was scanning and storing documents from those boxes onto a laptop that was actually provided by the PAC. So now there are a digital set of copies of some of that material that was taken during the search and seizure at Mar-A-Lago. So not only did Trump walk out of the White House with documents that he was not allowed to keep, and no, NARA does not have provisions for this whatsoever. No, he cannot telekinetically, psychically declassify things. There is no line of tape in the White House that Trump can carry the documents over and say, on this side it's classified, and as soon as I bring it here, it's declassified. It's mine now. He kept those documents on purpose for a reason, and they were making backups. It is positively abhorrent how much of a traitor he actually is and what he did with those secrets. And now we're just finding out more information about it, which is maybe why they want to sit there and try to claim that, the FBI was putting out a hit on him because they want to distract from these stories. And finally, speaking of the Stormy Daniels case that we did in the beginning of the video, Trump chose not to take the stand. He has since defended himself to one outlet who asked him about it, just basically did two crazy run-on sentences that didn't really answer the question, and tried to say, well, I couldn't do it because of the gag order and blah, 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 with this conflicted Judge Merchan. No, the gag order only extends to you attacking, intimidating witnesses and those involved in the court process. You cannot sit on the stand and sit there and try and do some Hollywood movie and say, you're out of order, the whole system's out of order, and you're conflicted, and your daughter does Democratic stuff, and that juror over there is giving me the stink eye. They're going to vote against you. That's what he was gagged on. He could absolutely defend himself and say things like, I never had an affair with Stormy Daniels. I never authorized a payment. If Michael Cohen did it, maybe he was just being a lackey and a flunky and being subservient to me and trying to do it to impress me. But no, I never authorized it and I never paid him money. Trump didn't do that because he knows he doesn't have anything to say that wouldn't be perjury. If he got up on the stand and the moment the prosecution started asking him questions, he would melt in his diapers, the bronzer would run down his face, the hair would go crazy, and he would not be able to answer the questions truthfully. Because we know the truth. He did this. He had the affair, and he tried to bury it, and it was a matter of elections because proof has come out that it was not to protect the affair from Melania. He stated to Stormy, we sleep in separate rooms. I mean, it's basically like, the first season of I Love Lucy, when they were in separate beds and everything. I forget if it was room or beds, but they are not spooning each other out of love over here, basically. So the trial has roasted this guy, and he did not take the stand to defend himself. He doesn't have a reason that is actually believable. The reason is he'd be perjuring himself up there because he's dead to rights and he doesn't want to admit it. And people like him and Flynn, they sit there and say they're going to testify. They sit there and say people who plead the fifth are, scum and they're liars and they have something to hide. And then they turn around and do it at every single opportunity. This is not an alpha male. This is not even a beta male. This is a delta, shriveled up, weak, cowardly, terrible liar. And that's why he didn't take the stand. And any defense he gives after that fact is complete garbage. It's perjury. That's what the defense is. I didn't want to commit perjury. I did not want to incriminate myself. And the moment that I started saying I plead the fifth, which you cannot do, but he probably would have tried, is the moment he would have lost this even further. He's lost it. It's coming out that the jury was snickering at his defense lawyers and their line of questioning and everything. And say what you want about Cohen. Cohen did what he did, lies and all, in deference to Trump, in order to help Trump, in the employ of Trump. What he did on the stand was for himself and to right those wrongs. Stormy roasted him. Karen McDougal was not called, but Karen would have roasted him. Pecker has roasted him. the dude is dead to rights. And I don't think even if there was a pro-MAGA plant on the jury there, like out of a John Grisham book or something, I don't think it's going to be a hung jury. I think if there was a plant, the 11 other people would really be able to convince that person to do the right thing and get out of there and not make it a mistrial because of an 11-1 jury judgment there. So remains to be seen here with Trump, but I'm pretty sure how this is going to go. And yeah, that is a wrap here on today's episode of the Political Napalm, and how the right and truth just aren't really good bedfellows these days. Thanks for watching the video, everybody.